day's program by Center for Knowledge Sovereignty. CKS is an established think tank led by Lieutenant General Dr. D. Shekatkar as the chairman and Lieutenant General VM Patil as vice chairman and Shri Vineet Goenka as the secretary.
Being told about how to be eyes and ears for PLA and then pass the information so that the necessary...
The biological weaponization is taking place and they have done this. So they believe more in non-kinetic way rather than
General Khandare with everybody, which happened because of you, and I'm very proud of that.
You all to the day's program by Center for Knowledge Sovereignty. CKS is an established think tank led by Lieutenant General Dr. D. Shekatkar as the chairman and Lieutenant General VM Patil as vice chairman and Shri Vineet Goenka as the secretary. CKS has been spreading awareness about data sovereignty and cyber security at strategic, political and national levels. CKS is a non-partisan, nationalistic think tank which has been spreading intellectual contents with focus on the spheres of technology, public policy and research. Today, in our third talk of Season 4 of our 5-series flagship webinar talk, Thus Spake Generals, we are honoured and privileged to have highly decorated veteran Lieutenant General Vinod G. Khandare, PVSM, AVSM, SM. He retired from Indian Army on 12th October 2021 after serving for 4 decades. Prior to his retirement, he was the former military advisor to NSCS. Prior to that, he was Director General, Defence Intelligence Agency and Deputy Chief of Integrated Defence Staff, handling Tri-Services Intelligence till 31st Jan 2018. He has a vast experience of handling military affairs and has been involved in decision-making at the apex level based on analysis and assessments impacting national interest. He has first-hand experience in dealing with China on LAC, with Pak on LOC, and in countering terrorism in the hinterland of Jammu and Kashmir and the Northeast region. He is an expert in indigenous capability and capacity enhancement mission and defense diplomacy. He synergized inter-ministerial output related to security. He is an avid thinker in conflict prevention, management and termination, as also in technology search and incorporation, and has played an important role in evaluating and formulation of reforms in the security sector. Currently, he is a distinguished fellow at USI New Delhi and emeritus research faculty with Rashtriya Raksha University, Gandhinagar, and he delivers lectures and participates in various international, national and armed forces seminars. He renders advice to various ministries, think tanks and pursues Atmanirbhar Bharat agenda in defense production. He is working on ancient and medieval period wisdom lessons derived from history for the military and non-military way forward. Presently, he is the principal advisor to Ministry of Defense. He has also co-authored a book on data sovereignty, the first ever book on the subject in India. Now I request Air Vice Marshal Pranay Sinha, VSM retired, an active member of a think tank, to take the program further. Viewers, AVM Pranay Sinha in his 35 years of distinguished career has hailed many important appointments, and post-retirement, he worked as an advisor to Bharat Electronics Limited for 3 years and presently is a strategic advisor to IIT Mandi. So over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, madam. For info of all, Madam Sumitra Goenka ji is Director Rating Infotech, CEO Triangle Global, and strongest pillar of strength of CKS India. Good evening, viewers. Please accept once again greetings from Team CKS India on this great momentous occasion of Azadi Ke Amrit Mahotsav par. And before I invite the learned speaker of the evening to speak on a very interesting subject, interesting changes in Chinese military, let's in a minute get acquainted with the subject per se. We all know that the last military campaign that China had was in 1979 against Vietnam, which exposed critical weakness in the People's Liberation Army in domains of command, logistics, and communications. Taking lessons from this military failure, the then Central Military Commission's chairman Deng Xiaoping instituted far-reaching reforms, rising and resurging China, then used its economic growth to modernize its military. But real impetus was given by Xi Jinping when he became president in April 2013. Xi, because of his past experiences of serving in PLA, brought in big structural changes. He pushed to reduce barriers between the civil and military authorities, what is being called as military civil fusion. Not only the Chinese Defense Ministry was reconstituted, the entire PLA force was redistributed into four services: PLA Army, PLA Navy, PLA Air Force, PLA Rocket Force, and PLA Strategic Support Force. It is pertinent to note that PLA is the armed wing of CCP, and its main objective is to protect the Communist Party's rule and not the nation China. Another remarkable restructuring was that 7 military regions of China were reorganized into 5 joint theater commands: North, South, East, West, and Central. Xi also ensured that military is transformed into a lean, mean fighting force by improving the teeth to tail ratio. And another big successful metamorphosis done is that indigenous production was made as cornerstone for PLA's modernization drive. Further, the improvements in military civilian collaboration compelled many Chinese firms to forge relationships with foreign companies and universities so as to acquire cutting edge technologies and know how with military application by hook or crook. PLA's capabilities in cyber, space, automation, and artificial intelligence is testimony to this fact. Perhaps no other branch of PLA has been more significantly upgraded than the PLA Navy, once which was neglected. It's now on the track to becoming the dominant naval force in China's two ocean strategy. Now let's hear more of this interesting saga from the expert of the domain, Principal Advisor to MOD, General Khandare. Over to you, sir.
Jai Hind viewers, it's a pleasure and an honor to be talking to you all on the eve of 75 years of Indian independence, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Special event because we are looking at the past 75 years, but when we look at the national security, we should be looking at the future. And to look at the future, we have to understand the whys of whatever changes are being made across the northern borders. And if we are able to understand the whys of it, the next 25 to 30 or 50 years will be quite all right, because we will then structure ourselves, train ourselves, and orient ourselves in that particular manner. So while I'm talking to you, let me firstly confess and tell all of you that there is no one who can say he's an expert, absolute expert on China. We all try our level best. We are all students of studying China. And it's a complex issue, especially because of the curtain that China does not allow anyone to peep inside. Perforce, people have to look at what has been thrown open by China, which is obviously a part of its ancient wisdom of propaganda, of playing on the mind, and the three warfare strategies which you've seen. They talk about public opinion and they talk about psychological operations as two pillars of that three strategies. So what is thrown at you is what you lap up. In addition to that, the Western thinkers give you what they feel is how they look at China. But let me tell you, there is a difference here. The Anglo-Saxon mind and the Oriental mind, these are two different things. That is the reason why I have been focusing on studying ancient wisdom, because Oriental nations, whether it is India, Pakistan, Japan, China, Korea, we all have a different way of thinking, much different from the Western thought process. In fact, if you focus on the national power or how national power is construed, the Western thought process always looked at colonizing. That is territorial colonizing. That was the Western concept, and for quite some time they have been doing it. When you look at the Oriental countries, you'll see China looks at economic colonization. India is far away from both of them. And if we go to Kautilya, he talks of various other things, and out of that, one is about, he talks about mitra, that is friendship. And he also talks about various equations based on which the mitra today may not be a mitra tomorrow. So if that be the case, how do you view China? Is China an adversary? Is China an enemy? Is China a benign element who stays across the northern borders? How do we look at it? And that's exactly where I want to point out that nothing is in black and white. Everything is in shades of gray. The shades of gray, the intensity of those will keep changing. So let's see, when we look at China, these changes which have been conveyed to us, and Vice Marshal Sinha just now mentioned the transformation and the modernization and what Xi Jinping is wanting to do, all these things we will have to look at differently. People say that China said, or the strategies given out by China were mechanization, informatization, and intelligentization. Okay, it is not without reason, it is not without logic. And that is my entire focus today. I want to explain my thoughts on the whys. At a particular point in time, the trajectory of single child policy was visible that it is going to lead to a manpower deficit. And that manpower deficit, despite the fact that they would go in for conscription, would create a problem. And then happened the first Gulf War in the 1991, and revolution of military affairs was what was adopted by China, which meant that they were going to now look at technology incorporation to overcome the manpower deficit. This part is generally missed by thinkers. I can give you my personal example that when I was commanding a brigade in the northeast Sikkim, I could see roads being constructed opposite us with a team of barely 4 to 5 people, one with a JCB, one with a dozer, one with a dumper, one with a road roller, and one person supervising everything. 5 people would come, work for a month together, and the road would be constructed. And there they went back. On our side, which is again a manpower intensive and a populous country, we have 30, 40, 70 people working. The progress is as per the thought process of the people who are getting the work done or those who are doing the work. So the compulsion of going for mechanization, whether it was in infrastructure creation, whether it was in combat readiness, whether it was in routine duties, this was the reason that mechanization possibly was pushed ahead. Then comes informatization. What is this reason? Why is informatization important? Oriental thought process, information is extremely important. Information is the most potent element to create national power. And in comprehensive national power, whichever domain you may look at, whether it is military, whether it is non-military, information is extremely important. So information collection became the one-point agenda of China. And that's what they've been doing. They have multiple types of sensors, temporally, spatially, and at times you can say human beings also have sensors. And they are the people who have been collecting. They've gone on a wild spree, whether it is economic intelligence, whether it is cyber espionage, whether it is related to do with ecology, whether it is to do with water. They have gone in collection of data, and that particular data thereafter, with the use of technology, they've done big data analysis, and that is what is the AI ready data, which subsequently transforms into their dream of intelligentization. Why intelligentization? Because there are topographical challenges, terrain friction challenges which they have. But if they are able to overcome that by having a smart method of functioning, which can come with intelligentization, that is the reason they thought about it. These 3 miracle words just did not drop from heaven. There was a lot of genius, I would say, which was involved in looking at how to resolve their problems. Simultaneously, if they were to reduce the numbers, which they did, many of us start saying that, okay, 2015 is the time when Xi Jinping reduced the military by 3 lakhs. Possibly, you may not have done adequate research. This is the 4th time that there is a reduction in the manpower in Chinese armed forces. So if it is the 4th time, it is something well thought out. The thought process in any country which is developing is that if you get a government job and you have assured source of income, is the best possible dream any family can have. But the moment you have permanency and the efficiency and effectiveness starts going down, that is the time you realize that to get professionalism back, you need to tweak the organization. You need to ensure that the human capital is brought back to a performance level. So the 4th time when it was done, it isn't that the entire PLA ground forces 3 lakh population was just cut. No, on the contrary, they looked at what should be done to supplement the capability which they were going to lose. So they brought PAPF, that is the police force under the command of PLA, which meant routine duties which otherwise the army was doing would be taken over by PAPF. In our country, this is not so. In our country, we have BSF looking in one direction, the army is looking at another direction, ITBP is looking at third direction. So here is a lesson that needs to be learned. The next part is what out of the reduced people was done. Xi Jinping realized that from the continental view, he has to look towards the maritime view. And why? His identified adversaries across the maritime straits. India is not the principal adversary as far as China is concerned. So they wanted to immediately get onto the act of consolidation, the maritime capabilities. So a bulk of this lot, which was being reduced, was shifted into the Navy and the Air Force. In addition to that, they brought in the Strategic Support Force. Now, here is an interesting point. You look at the West, they have independent pillars, whether it is a space force, whether it is an intelligence agency, whether they call it, they actually in USA call it the Defense Intelligence Agency. They have the Space Force. Many countries have rocket forces. So basically, each of the Western country was looking at independent structures, but trying to get them in a joint manner. Chinese brought in all these under one particular head called the Strategic Support Force. The rocket force was separate. And all this along with one more thought process that they would look at jointness. So what AVM Sinha said, from the 7 military regions, they went in for 5 theatre commands. And these 5 theatre commands would have, along with the combat elements, the joint logistic support force. They would also support whichever is the area where they need to do. So I have tried to explain why in this case was the thought process. Even today, we all start looking at the Western model. We possibly fall in love even before knowing that. And then we say that, no, we should have these independent silos. Well worth a thought looking at what is the Chinese model. It has its own advantages. So that is what we should look at. I told you that the numbers were reduced. The lack of numbers got compensated or is still getting compensated by improving the education and the intake method. The education standards have been enhanced. More and more youngsters from universities are being taken in. There is a lot of emphasis now in Tibet to take Tibetans. These Tibetans who are being taken are also being put through the military academy in Tibet Autonomous Region, and they have been picked up from the universities. So you look at now less numbers but better quality. Now there will be a lot of emphasis by saying that a good student may not be a good soldier, but a good student can be made into a good soldier, but a good soldier may not be able to be converted into an educated soldier. There will always be problems in that. So this is one interesting change where they have looked at educated intake. They have looked at people with skills for intake, and they have started looking at Tibet in particular because they do not want to have another 25 to 50 years of problems, whether it is in Xinjiang or whether it is in Tibet Autonomous Region. Okay. Next, let me come to the aspect of why is China pushing India, especially on the land borders. Now, when I'm talking about this, people will wonder, I should have been focusing on military, but in China, everything is military-civil fusion, whether it is the vision, whether it is the preparation, whether it is the methodology. The visionaries there have a different focus. China does not do planning or tactical execution. China always takes strategic vision, and then a long haul is what it goes into. I have been studying a lot of things, and I realized that you have to join the dots between military and non-military also. China does experiments somewhere where it does not mean major business, and then extrapolates that successful example to areas which are of its primary concern. Mekong River has been actually modified in a manner that there are 11 major dams on Mekong River, and the lower riparian or the middle riparian countries are now screaming because they don't have enough water. Now let's bring this example to India. China is one possible country which is always an upper riparian state. India at places is upper riparian, at places middle, and at places lower. Bangladesh is a lower riparian state. Pakistan is a lower riparian state. Now, why did I mention this? China has a vision that it is going to convert the western and its northern water stressed area into green belt. it is going to ensure that Hanization of Tibet and Xinjiang gets completed. PLA is going to play a major role in that. And so are the scientists who are going to play a major role. In this engineering or scientific community, there are a lot of PLA personnel who are deployed. The idea of creating dams, generating electricity, and then diverting this water to Xinjiang or to Tibet is the purpose of having this kind of strategic economic depth. China today realizes that its east coast, which is called the Gold Coast, is vulnerable from the American front. It needs to create alternates and strategic economic depth, which is possible in its west and north. And Tibet happens to be there, and so is Xinjiang. There are plans which are being worked out for water to be shifted all the way to Xinjiang, and that is when a lot of Han population can also be settled there. Similarly, as a part of the three warfare strategy, they want to consolidate their legal claims over what is known as the line of actual control and convert it into international border, or even claim more than that towards the south, towards Arunachal Pradesh, or even the central sector, Sikkim, or maybe even in Ladakh. So in that case, over 600 border villages are being established. Now these 600 villages, traditionally or typically, about 100 families in each village. Now, who are these 100 families? Not necessarily all people from Tibet, but it would comprise of people from PLA, people from the intelligence community, people from Tibet. And in addition to that, the nomadic tribes who are residing in these forward areas are being put through a national military education program by PLA. So they are being told about how to be eyes and ears for PLA and then pass the information so that the necessary intelligence fusion collation can be done by PLA. So you have now the legal claim, then you have the eyes and ears, then you have the fusion, you have the command and control, you have the education system being given, and over a period of time, you have prosperity being brought in this area by means of water, electricity, agriculture. Xinjiang province has a good agriculture prospects. They need water, so this is the water that can be taken. Now, if the vulnerability of these water projects is right in the show window of the neighbor, that is India, then it could create long-term problems. So China decides that strategic vision is keep pushing India as far away as possible from these strategic projects. Today, they may not be strategic, but the long-term vision is to convert them into strategic projects. What else is China doing with the strategic vision of becoming a great power by 2049? One more thing which they have done is, having realized that the meteorological part has to be changed by geoengineering, they have gone in for weather modification. Now, all over the world, people do weather modification, that is seeding of clouds. Now, even in this weather modification department, there are people from the PLA who are part of it, and most of them are in the Tibet Autonomous Region. And that is the place where trying to increase the rain, trying to increase the snow, and by doing so, increase water tables, water levels, and water availability. And the moment water availability is more, then electricity generation also takes place. So this weather modification department, if you go on open source, you will find Beijing Weather Modification Office. It has about 37,000 people. And in addition to what they are trying to do and have seeding of clouds, they have given a vision to their people that weather modification is well justified as long as you get enough water for economic prosperity and clear skies for technological experiments. So these are the two things which they look at. Large number of weather monitoring stations have been established in Tibet Autonomous Region. There is one more project which they have embarked upon, creation of a satellite and creation of technology whereby they would be able to shift moisture, whether from stratosphere or ionosphere. And that, if you go on open source, you will find the name as River in the Sky. That river in the sky is capable of shifting water. Now, if water is shifted away from the Himalayas, you can well imagine what will be the impact in our region. I'm saying region because there Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, all of us get impacted. a large percentage of our population is dependent on the foothills of Himalayas. And most of our agriculture is dependent on these running waters. So that is the problem that we are likely to face. And this will ensure that most of the projects would become militarily vulnerable. So PLA has to be brought in and made to live here, made to get used to protecting the assets, the infrastructure, whether it is roads, railways, whether it is these electricity, hydroelectricity projects, whatever you may call it. But these are long-term valuable assets which China is wanting to create. I told you about the enrollment of Tibetan soldiers. Now, they will also be given a vision that their land is what they should protect. When did this thought process start? When the Indian troops went on to Kailash range in East Ladakh, and that is when it was known that one Tibetan soldier from the Special Frontier Force had laid down his life while fighting against the Chinese. That is the time Xi Jinping and his advisors got into an overdrive to say that they should enroll Tibetans in support role. Now, what does that mean? Firstly, in one of the prefecture, they have passed an order that every family must have one male member in the PLA. The second thing, there would be an entrance test, and in that entrance test, they would have to clear certain tests or these scrutinies that their loyalty towards the Chinese Communist Party would be impeccable. Now, some people may say that a large number of them may fail. I do not think that would happen, because it is a question of survival for these youngsters. If they do not clear, then they have only one place to go, that is in the labor camp. So quite a few of them are going to clear that under fear or under fear of reprisals. Have we seen them? Yes, in the area of Chumbi Valley, they have been deployed. But what exactly are they doing today? They're possibly being used to lead a patrol with a flag of the Chinese Communist Party. By doing that, two things. The Tibetans are carrying the flag, so their alignment with the identity of Chinese Communist Party is getting established. At least it is visible to the other locals. And in addition to that, they are getting a better life, better vocation, better profession, and their families are getting used to the kind of salaries which otherwise they were deprived of. When on the Indian side, this Tibetan soldier or the Tibetan SFF Indian soldier laid down his life, immediately China woke up and they went into what they are very good at, that is propaganda. And that's the other thing which I want to talk about, the information warfare or the perception shaping. China does kinetic and non-kinetic option combination extremely well, whether it is preparation, whether it is sequencing, whether it is deception. It's not always that you find only the kinetic option being exercised. In fact, even in 1962, propaganda was at its peak. How is it that the Chinese have such good capability of propaganda? Because even in their People's War in the early 1900s, they had believed in propaganda. So they are very good at it. Interest sake, Chou Enlai, who was one of the foremost leaders in this war for independence and war for communism, he had studied in France. So he had studied a lot of intelligence activities from France. In fact, when he was in the initial stages trying to survive in Shanghai against Chiang Kai-shek, that is the time there was a portion of French intelligence which was supporting him. So he had brought in a lot of wisdom of intelligence from the West. But there were ancient wisdom tales and people who were avid military thinkers and intelligence thinkers who had told them how Chinese ancient intelligence doctrines existed. So it was a beautiful combination of ancient wisdom with what the West gave them. Initially, this intelligence part focused only on propaganda and picking up those people who were against this People's War. Subsequently, as they became independent, so to say, in 1949, and thereafter they started looking around who could be the possible adversaries. In that, the first one figured was Japan. So they started building up capabilities to pick up Japanese agents and put them into labor camps, the same way that they were picking up enemies of the People's War. But subsequently, they started looking towards India after relations started getting bad. And at one particular point in time, Kalimpong was known to be a place swarming with Chinese spies. So that was the human element that they were looking at. Gradually, Chou En-lai thought he would bring in external intelligence. So he started pushing a lot of people into their embassies who were the intelligence operatives. Over a period of time, when Chou En-lai had done his bit and then he and Mao both passed away, that is the time, especially Deng Xiaoping, he wanted to expand the economic envelope. And that's when he decided that what they needed then was the economic intelligence. And that is where the quest for cyber started. Cyber espionage, cyber crime, all these things started happening beyond the military also and within the military also. So you have the capability for information warfare as well as for cyber warfare, both in the military and the non-military domain even today. Especially in cyber, there are a number of specialized units, and there is a huge organization which is anything up to 500,000 to more than that, is about the cyber warriors. They don't have to be told what is to be done. The moment they realize that something is going against China, they straight away take off and they start protecting their own country's interests and targeting the adversary. There have been huge number of cyber attacks on Indian infrastructure, and most of it would be attributed to the cyber warriors as well as these specialized cyber units. The next part is about information warfare. As a part of these three warfare strategies, two pillars which I told you is one about public opinion and second is about psychological warfare. If you look around ourselves, we'll realize that we are proud of our democracy, but this democratic system does create certain fault lines which can be utilized by the adversary, and that's exactly what China is doing by making use of our vulnerabilities and our weaknesses. Like the freedom of speech is our strength as far as we are concerned, but it's a vulnerability in the eyes of the Chinese. So whether they get into the media, whether they get into our academia, whether they send students here, whether they send students to USA, you name it. In fact, even Hollywood has been penetrated. Now, whether Bollywood has been penetrated or not, the present sequence of things will possibly throw some light on that. What is the idea? If there are fault lines of social fabric or economic inequality, that has to be capitalized upon, and that is what is being done. A large number of people would say, no, this is not true, this is not proven. A disaster does not wait for people to prove it before it strikes. So, if suddenly we find that there is a kind of a bias towards a particular thinking, you can well start joining the dots and see where is it leading to. Large number of Confucius institutes have been started. Along the Nepal border, you find a large number of Confucius units which are existing. They are existing even in Pakistan. Pakistan after some time started cracking down, but there was a synergy between some of the madrasas and Confucius institutes as well. Our intelligence agencies would always want to see what's happening inside, but the kind of economic muscle that exists, which creates this infrastructure in the periphery of China, brings them a lot of information and also polarizes the neighbors. Any society, if the cohesion is broken, China would achieve its aim as taught to them by Sun Tzu, that they would win without fighting a war. So when General Rawat used to say again and again that we are looking at a 2.5 front, this half front was the one where internal threats, internal problems which have been recognized now and which can be capitalized whether by ISI or whether by the MSS, which is equivalent there in China. So they are the ones who can do it. Xi Jinping has focused more on technology, so he has focused more on the cyber part. Lately, they have realized, it's not public, but they've realized that unless human intelligence is interposed with technological innovations and devices and systems, the entire intelligence could become biased. In any case, when people talk of intelligence, what we have to realize, till it is verified and corroborated, it is just information. So what cyber is getting you is information. What human intelligence independently is getting you is information. Both are information. But once they are synthesized, that is the time you can call that as intelligence. So human element is again being galvanized by them. From the strategy point, what is the change? Deng Xiaoping used to say, hide and bide till we arrive. So economically, they feel they have arrived. What are the indicators? Look at the jump at the defense budget. Many years back, it was just about 35 billion. Now you see how it has gone beyond 235 billion. So if the economic might is there, plus they feel that they have penetrated the economic institutions of the West, then is the time to do muscle flexing, which exactly what the strategy of Xi Jinping is, to announce the arrival. At the same time, keep balancing till the moment arrives. Now, a lot of people say, sir, this will happen in 2049. It won't. It will happen earlier than that. The moment they realize that while they are progressing, the others are on the decline. So the timelines can always be shifted. One more issue is related to what we went through COVID-19. Now, COVID-19, again, there you see the presence of PLA people was quite visible, which means what had been announced many years back, use of asymmetrical weapon, has been used. So when asymmetrical weapons have been used, now there is a deniability, there is a non-attributability, whether it is in nuclear domain, whether it is in biological, whether it is in chemical. If preparation is there, the intent will always come. And that intent can come, and thereafter it can be immediately followed up by volunteering for relief, as happened with COVID. The whole world went under that, and the Chinese relief teams were the first ones to take off and land in those countries which had suffered the most. There is economics in that also, but all the same, the idea that I'm trying to say is this is yet another option that China would exercise along with kinetic or alone also, and the sequence they would decide based on their own wisdom. So by and large, in 30 minutes, I think this is what I can cover. But if there are questions and answers, I would take them on. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Thanks for explaining this complex issue. It's really very complex. The China's three warfare strategies: mechanization, information, intelligence, and then the three subparts of information warfare post-19 Gulf War, that is the PSYOPs or legal and media. And very interesting thing which came up, viewers, please note, sir has told how these Chinese are weaponizing. They are weaponizing the water through the various ways, sir told. And weather weaponization, the environmental modification, they are the master in NMOD techniques, environmental modification techniques. And how they are going to use this, we're seeing. Then, of course, in the end, he also said that how the biological weaponization is taking place, and they have done this. So they believe more in non-kinetic way rather than contact warfare. They are wary of contact warfare. But yes, how they are going to use the Tibet also, weaponization of Tibet, how they will be using the Tibetans, how they will be using Hananization and the Tibetan Xinjiang region, how they want to shift their east coast, which is vulnerable to the Americans, and toward this Tibet and Xinjiang area. Interesting, very interesting, challenging, and very, very grim for us. I don't know how we will be tackling that. I will request sir to answer in few questions. Sir, thanks for explaining this complex issue, which has made more complex, and I don't know how we will be able to resolve it. I will take some interesting questions which has come up, sir, and hopefully some come up, more clarification may come up there, sir. So the first questions from our regular viewer, Mr. Dharamveer ji, he's asking, he has gone directly on the theater command, sir. He's asking what is the fate of the theater command in India. And two more questions he has asked. He has also asked, sir, border talks, no result, how to tackle PLA, PLAF, air violation, how to tackle. So one, how to tackle, and second, the synergy and the theater command fate in India.
Okay. Firstly, Dharamveer ji, my entire focus was to explain how non-kinetic warfare domain is as dangerous and as horrible for us to handle So while theaterization will happen, and theaterization has to happen from the top, it has to be a push from the top, because theaterization will only happen once we talk of integration. People talk of jointness, but I'm saying we'll have to talk of integration. And integration comes from the mind. Unless we start thinking from that point of view, theaterization, if just a structure is created, how does it help? I have been repeating this in most of the fora in the services to say we talk of whole of nation approach. We talk of whole of government approach. I think it is high time the services started talking of whole of tri-services approach. And that moment, it happens from the mind, it happens from independent thought process for the nation, but joint action for the three services, theaterization will happen. Another thing, we Indians are very fond of creating structures, but what is missing always is the processes and the procedures. We've created three structures. We created a Defense Cyber Agency, a Defense Space Agency, and an Armed Forces Special Operations Division. We are still struggling with the process and the procedures. I think what simultaneously, when we are looking at theaterization, along with that, preparation for processes and procedures have to happen. The other thing, when did we start talking about? Very recently. China, the military reforms were a copy from two of the biggest military powers of the world. Technology from USA and the doctrine, strategy and structures from Russia. Now, when Russia started modernizing, and it took nearly 10 years to modernize, and it took 10 years to create these structures, and the first time they have been put to use in conventional battle against Ukraine, you realize the kind of struggle that they are going through. So if theaterization has to take place, we have to be cautious to ensure that we take small, careful steps. It is not a question which will suit political announcement, or it is not something which is a diplomatic announcement for the world to know. This is purely and strictly military business which should be left to the military professionals. So that is the first part I want to talk about theaterization. Please leave it to the three service chiefs, to the Raksha Mantri, to the Defense Secretary. These people know how it is to be done. These people know how gradually it has to be brought to ensure that it does not fail. The next part is about border talks. I'm sure everyone has noticed, Dharamveerji, you also would have noticed that this is the first time between us and China, the border talks are being conducted by military officers. Earlier, there were never any military talks to resolve any issue. They were always handled by the Ministry of External Affairs. And take it from me that any country which has its governance issues, they are guided by a certain set of rules. The transaction of business rules is the golden book through which each of the ministry functions. And in the transaction of business rules and the allocation of business rules, the border area and the border issues related with the neighbors is the job of Ministry of External Affairs. So that is the reason earlier it used to be always the Ministry of External Affairs dealing with its counterpart in China. Now this time it is interesting. Why did, of all the people, China agree to have military people talking? And why did we talk? Because we realized that this time we are only talking about the positions of the respective militaries. We are not talking about where does the international border run, where does the McMahon line run. No, that is not a part of this border talk. So here, again, India and China both are extremely good at tiring each other out. So every time there are talks, there are long talks, there are long duration talks. Most of the long duration talks are because language is not understood. So it takes double the time. But even then, India is very clear, it is standing firm on what we want. What does China want? It wants to create a buffer zone which India does not agree to. India is wanting its positions as were prior to April 2020 to be restored. So that is the reason these border talks will continue to happen till such time the respective governments agree or feel that we will continue to talk till a solution is obtained. So beyond the military senior leaders talks, there are political leaders, there are diplomats who have to talk. So this is just the beginning, it's not going to finish. And what about the various transgressions by their fighter aircrafts? What about their patrols which come? This is normal business. There is a saying that along the line of control, along the line of actual control and in cyber, there are no rules. whoever does whatever they do, and it's a question of whether you are looking at conflict avoidance without compromising on your sovereignty. As long as you achieve that, that is what will be done. Overall national mission may be to avoid a conflict at this stage, but sovereignty will be protected, which the Raksha Mantri had already said that we are not giving away any of our sovereignty issues. So these are the things which I thought I'll explain to you.
Next question comes from Sumitra ji, and a similar question is from Ajay Kashikar, both related to technology. Where we stand vis-a-vis cyber warfare and AI. Sir, you have been in NSCS, you have been DIA. So a direct question, where we stand, sir, cyber warfare?
Okay.
And
both these issues related to cyber and AI, we have a lot of technological differential, which is a fact which we must accept. We must not live in a fool's paradise to say that we are equivalent to them. We are not. There may be a number of reasons because of that. Maybe we started late. Maybe our method of functioning is slower than an autocratic state like China. So there is a tremendous amount of technological differential. So what is our focus as of now? Our focus is more defensive to protect our critical infrastructure. So that is where the focus has been. And every time the infrastructure that gets attacked and we are able to successfully protect it, our stand gets firm and our capabilities become better, where we are able to say that, okay, did we suffer damage? No, we did not suffer damage. So, okay, we've been good at defense. And then we are able to collect the samples of what has been used against us, which makes us even more richer. All of us have been talking of artificial intelligence. That is one crib I have with everyone. AI is just an engine, but what is needed is data. And we've all worked on data, and I'm telling you that this is the missing link, and people are just not focusing on data. Let me explain the importance of data. Whether it is the Indian police, whether it is the Indian governance system, whether it is the meteorological department, whether it is the airlines, railways, roads, anybody you name it, they have since 1947 or even prior to that, tons of paper, which is the legacy data. In addition to that, when the automation started, various forms of soft copies existing worth petabytes, terabytes, you name it, and it is all lying. But there has been very limited focus because everyone seems to be glamorized by something which can be done in his or her tenure, the low hanging fruit. And everyone wants to galvanize AI. Without data, how do you do it? Or without adequate data, you will come to wrong conclusions. Without the correct harmonization of legacy data with the current data, you will not get the future predictions in the right form. So we have been pushing hard for the users, the practitioners, get your data act right. We talk in PowerPoint presentations and seminars that data is oil, data is gold. But why are we not talking of that? Why are we not acting on it? Because it is hard work. It is unglamorous. If today I have to start harmonizing the soft copies and hard copies of legacy data, it is going to take a long time. But we have the capability, we have the startups which can do both these jobs together. But work is not in that direction in the kind of intensity that would be required. We have been sensitizing the decision makers to get into this, and actually we may require a data revolution. Unless we do that data revolution, AI as an engine will not have the best possible fuel. You may have an engine, you may have bad fuel, you may have inadequate adulterated fuel. So obviously your predictions would go wrong.
Sir, my direct question, we have defensive cyber capability, no doubt, and protection of all the critical infrastructure is testimony to this. What about, sir, offensive cyber capability? Are we in the game?
Offensive is never to be revealed.
Thank you, sir. Sir, next question comes, very interesting question, sir. There is a difference, this is Yogesh Nene, there is a difference in how an Indian soldier thinks and acts as against Chinese soldier. Sir, your comments on this. So who thinks better? I think he wants to know this.
Actually, it is not who thinks better. If I look at it, both the soldiers have a different way of thinking, and it is based on the education, the upbringing, what we call as sanskars, and then thereafter, once they don the uniform, the kind of training that is given to them. These factors bring in a change in thinking or bring in a thought process, the way somebody reacts, the way somebody acts. The communist thinking is specific to China, and that is the way a Chinese soldier would think. The Indian soldier would be nationalist at heart, but would not be a automated zombie, so to say. Okay, very simply put, I'll give you an example. And let me give that example from the officer's point of view. We have an officer who's like late Colonel Babu, independent thinker, nationalist, took a decision on the spot. Whatever happened, the nation backed him. On the other side, the commanding officer will have right next to him a political commissar. The political commissar will tell him whether his decision is to be implemented, not to be implemented today, implemented tomorrow, and you'll be surprised. If you look at the intelligence community also in China, even the intelligence operations are finally dictated by the political commissar. So that is the kind of thinking that brings in a change in the action, reaction, and behavioral pattern. The responses automatically will be based on the kind of initiative that has been developed. In China, it will be stereotyped. In India, there will be a lot of freedom of action that would be available. And other issues about the morale or the kind of behavior related to colleagues or related to local people, this is also different. You see Indian soldiers when they are in Ladakh, when they are in Sikkim, when they are in the central sector of Uttarakhand, when they are in Arunachal Pradesh or Assam, look at how we behave with the local population. Okay, you can say that in any case, Xinjiang and Tibet are occupied territories, so their behavior obviously will be cruel and they will look at them in a manner of subjugation. That is what we say. But on one side, China says that it is just reclaiming its lost territories which had been with them for so many centuries earlier. If that is the case, the people also would belong to them. Then why is the behavior so cruel, whether it is in Xinjiang or whether it is in Tibetan? Why are there people who are put in camps? Why are people there who have been doing self-immolation in Tibet? So it automatically brings about a thought process of Han supremacy over the rest, and most of the soldiers being from the Han race, they would behave accordingly. In our case, we have a national army, we have people from all over the country, we have people from all religions, we have people from all kinds of races also. There is never a problem of somebody saying that he or she is superior to so and so. So we have a kind of thinking which matches with the nationalistic ideals. If you're talking of professionalism, who's better between the two? The more you train, the better you become. If you train more, you'll become better. If they train more, they'll become better. You see pictures of Chinese soldiers carrying out exercises at 20,000 feet above sea level in snow. He's showing it, we are not showing it, and we have been doing it right through. We do it even today. But we don't show it because we don't want to reveal our locations. Because we have no intention of going and crossing and capturing those areas, but Chinese have. You start doing tit for tat by uploading those pictures, you are giving out your location. So you have to be very careful, you have to be mature, and you don't have to advertise that you are so good.
That's very fine. Thanks, sir. And sir, last question. This is the impact of Taiwan and China clashes on India. Taiwan चीन युद्ध से भारत पर सामरिक दृष्टिकोण से क्या असर होगा?
सामरिक दृष्टिकोण से ताइवान पे जो भी नतीजा निकलता है, अलग अलग दशाएं हैं. दिशा एक है लेकिन दशाएं अलग अलग हैं. क्या चीन हमला करेगा? क्या चीन अपनी सेना से हमला करेगा या सेना से हमला न करके साइबर से हमला करेगा, उसके बाद सेना से हमला करेगा? और सेना से मेरा मतलब वायुसेना और जल सेना भी है, थल सेना भी है. हमारे से पहले सामरिक दृष्टिकोण से जापान, साउथ कोरिया और यूएसए पे इसका असर पड़ेगा. ऑस्ट्रेलिया पे भी इसका असर पड़ेगा. अगर सही ढंग से सोचा जाए, यदि चाइना ताइवान में उलझ जाता है, उसमें हमें फायदा है या नुकसान है? निश्चित तौर पे अगर एक तरफ वो उलझता है तो उसका यहाँ पे ध्यान कम होता है, उसकी शक्ति बढ़ती है। आप देखिए उनका एक जो मैंने बताया था जॉइंट लॉजिस्टिक सपोर्ट फोर्स है, वो एक है, वो उसको पांचों कमांड्स को, पांचों थिएटर्स को सपोर्ट करने के लिए उसका जॉइंट लॉजिस्टिक्स का एक महकमा है। अगर वो दोनों तरफ एक साथ फ्रंट खुलता है तो निश्चित ही गलती कर रहा है या गलती करेगा जो नेपोलियन ने भी किया था और जो हिटलर ने भी किया था। यदि आप मल्टीपल फ्रंट्स अलग अलग जगह पे खोलते हैं, चाहे वो भारत की सीमा पर हो और वो चाहे ताइवान पे हो, उसका नुकसान उसे भुगतना पड़ेगा। सामरिक तौर पे और भी कई चीजें हैं, जैसे जो एक माइक्रोचिप बनाने की इंडस्ट्री ताइवान में बहुत बड़े पैमाने पे है, वो पूरी तरह से चाइना के हाथ में आ जाएगी यदि वो उसको सुरक्षित कैप्चर कर पाया तो। उसकी वजह से टेक्नोलॉजिकल कैपेबिलिटी चीन की और बढ़ जाएगी। ये एक निश्चित दूरगामी परिणाम होने वाला है और हमसे ज्यादा इसकी चिंता अमेरिका और जापान को है। जापान को इसलिए भी है क्योंकि यदि ताइवान चीन के हाथ में चला जाता है तो जापान के लिए एक खतरा, नजदीकी खतरा हो जाता है। तो हमें देखते रहना है और हमें ये ऑब्जर्व करना है कि इस पूरे चीज में कौन किस तरह से रिएक्ट करता है और उससे जरूरी ज्यादा कौन सी टेक्नोलॉजी यूज होती है। अभी जापान और यूएसए एक अंडर वाटर डोमेन अवेयरनेस के लिए टेक्नोलॉजी यूज करते हैं जो हमें भी उसकी आवश्यकता है। यदि हम उसको ठीक ढंग से देखेंगे, जैसे चीन ने गल्फ वॉर में देखा था, तो उसका फायदा हम उठा सकते हैं। उसका सामरिक महत्व यही है कि जो दोनों देश लड़ेंगे उसका फायदा तीसरे देश को होगा। ये मैं आपको एक और चीज बताना चाहता हूं कि कई बार लड़ता कोई है, फायदा किसी और को होता है। इसलिए जब हमारा डोकलम और ईस्ट लद्दाख का भी एक तनाव चल रहा था, उस समय जिनको हम दोस्त समझ रहे थे उनकी भी इच्छा थी कि हम लड़ाई में उतरें ताकि उनको भी चीन की असली ताकत का पता लगे और हमें वो फिर उसके बाद ब्लैकमेल या एक तरह से लिवरेज कर सकें कि आपको हथियार तो हमसे ही लेना पड़ेगा। तो ये ऐसी चीजें हैं, ये आगे आगे चल के हमको इस पे बहुत ध्यान देना है। और मैं आपको यही बताना चाहता हूं कि गवर्नमेंट में काफी समझदार लोग हैं और भले ही वो बोलते नहीं होंगे लेकिन वो काम जरूर करते हैं और ईमानदारी से करते हैं।
Sir, before I request Dr. Nagratna, the legal eagle of CKS India and associate professor of famous NLSIU, Bangalore, I will request Sri Vinod Goenkaji, the man behind our think tank, who co-authored Data Sovereignty with you, sir, and presently member governing council of Center for Railway Infosystem, former member task force. Vinod ji, floor is yours.
I would like to wish all the viewers who will be watching this, the 75th Independence Day, and also remind them the horror which this part of the geography went through as partition 75 years. General Khandare, Ram Ram, and it's always a pleasure to listen to you. Whenever I listen to you, it's like a new day for me, and I remember your days as DGDIA and the thought which you seeded in all of us, that was Cyber Citizen 2030. Viewers, you would like to know that General Khandare is general, but he is not a general because he is something, a rare brand who talked about how the citizens can participate and help the forces in 2030, and the coin of the word Cyber Citizen 2030 came from him, those days when we were all working together. I also would like to tell the viewers who may not know, he used non-kinetic forces, he used technology not only in the cyberspace, but he's the man who first talked about geospatial technologies which can be used in strategic forces, be it LiDAR, drone and satellite technologies and things on the geospatial, which he's been using, he's been serving and also been propagating about that particular part. I would like to share one particular incident, General Khandare, with everybody, which happened because of you, and I'm very proud of that. We have always seen in our country, we all love our soldiers, especially when if a soldier falls down. वीर के लिए तो सभी लोग खड़े होते हैं, and we everybody stands for them. The country unites. People come, they bring in money. This happens that whenever you see a funeral of a soldier, I think unparalleled, which can be seen, which is there. But one concept came to my mind, and I discussed it with General Khandare. It was Thandi Raak, the cold ash. This incident happened at one of our boys, Major Mohit. We lost him in 2011 in Kashmir, and after 10 years, that was in 2021, I felt that we should go to his family and also tell them that we have not forgotten the family after 10 years. I shared this idea with General Khandare, and he instantly backed it up. He said, yes, bring his parents, we'll talk. There was a discussion. And I'm very proud that in one single meeting of 7 or 8 minutes, I think I'm remembering it proper, General, it was not more than 7 8 minutes. He agreed. And then Raksha Mantri Rajnath ji, in fact, went to house of Major Mohit after 10 years of his martyrdom and inaugurated this statue there in Ghaziabad, and everybody can go and see the station which has been now named in the name of the Veer Major Mohit, also the road and the statue which is there. Somebody who not only cares about future readiness of the army also, but thinks about the past, the boys who have lost 10 years after what they have sacrificed. And this is the first time when I have seen somebody wearing a uniform, thinking about all the boys whom we have lost last 10 years, 20 years, going to their parents, meeting them, making sure that they know that we remember them and we take care of them. General, I'm very proud of you. This comes from my heart. And all that thing, I wish I could have talked here on the screen, which would go down in our memories, not coming up. And one more thing which I would like to tell. When we were writing this book, Data Sovereignty, the active participation, rather, he leaded the team. He told what should be written, what not. We could not write many things when we wanted because there were obvious reasons which we could not write. But I learned a lot from him. And personally, as a family, we look after him as a father, and he always treats us like children. General, this particular thank you from me before the formal thanks comes to you is being with us and guiding us throughout. Thank you for coming. AVM Sinha, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Dr. Nagratna, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. A very good evening to one and all. It is indeed my privilege to render this heartfelt note of gratitude and vote of thanks. During this meaningful event, the talk in the series of CKS Thus Spake Generals, I, on behalf of the Center for Knowledge Sovereignty, extend a deep sense of gratitude and thanks to our esteemed speaker of today's event, Lieutenant General Vinod Khandare, sir, PVSM, AVSM, SN, for extremely interesting and informative talk on interesting changes in Chinese military. A talk that has made this special day, the eve of our nation's Independence Day, more meaningful and significant, sir. So we thank you immensely for delivering, covering various issues, including the vulnerabilities of this region, strategies adopted by China with an aim to acquire more power, geopolitical activities China is engaged in this region, including in Tibet region, its possible impact on India, various modes of war strategies China is engaged in, including the information war, cyber war, many other issues. In fact, each of your answers to the questions raised by the participants were also of valuable inputs to us. You did cover a lot of issues, including the data related aspect. Thank you, sir, for making this event very meaningful and valuable. Thanks once again for your valuable talk. I also thank our esteemed participants, both present here on this platform as well as other virtual platforms, including social media platforms, for making this event very meaningful with your participation. I also thank our CKS team for organizing this talk, including most importantly, Gen Vinod Bhatia sir for leading and guiding this team as always, including even during today's event. A special thanks to Air Vice Marshal Sir Pranay Sinha sir for conceptualizing this entire event and for moderating today's session. Special thanks to Srimati Sumitra Goenka ma'am for contributing again to the successful conduct of this event and for delivering initial introductory remarks. Special thanks to my dear friend Ms. Deepa Prakash for your valuable contribution in organizing the event. Thanks to Mr. Paresh for providing essential